there everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Unlimited video. Big news today, we are going to be talking set rotation and card rarity adjustment, which sort of came a little bit out of nowhere, I think, and not, well, I mean, you know, not what we were really concerned about, but it's some pretty interesting news. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I've watched the stream that FFG had on my way home, so we'll talk about this article, and then if there's anything that they missed in here that they talked about in the stream, I'll mention it, and then we will have a little discussion. So let's begin with the set rarity adjustments. So starting with jump to light speed, that is set 4, there will be some adjustments to the distribution of card rarities in each set going forward. The entire card list will now have 10 more commons, 2 fewer rares, and 4 more legendaries. So, what does this mean? This means, for sure, there will be at least 2 additional cards in each set that are, like, unique. Well, not for sure. Very likely. These 10 more commons could very well be reprints, so I wouldn't immediately assume that these are going to be like mechanically unique cards. In particular, with the knowledge of sort of like set rotation being a thing, I think it is very likely that sets 4 onwards are going to include more and more and more reprints as they want to keep certain cards in the game, because there's kind of no point, you know, printing the exact same effect on different name, unless you just want the legacy format to have loads of those cards, or Twin Suns to have loads of those cards, which is viable, it's possible. But yeah, 10 more commons, 2 fewer rares, and 4 more legendaries. So obviously your first thought is, well, hold on a minute, you already have 16 legendaries, you're bringing us up to 20. That is a pretty hefty increase, right? That is literally a 25% increase in the number of legendaries. I sure hope the pull rate's going to be increased. Well, let's have a look. The card rarity distribution within the booster packs is going to be the same. However, legendaries will appear a bit more often, around 1 in 5 versus 1 in 8. So what that means is, on average, you'll get between 4 and 5 legendaries base rarity per box. So it's much more likely to be 5, so we'll say 5, versus 3. So the number of legendaries you are getting per box is actually increasing by about 70%, even though the number of legendaries cards is increasing by 25%. So this is a net win. This means we are getting more legendaries per box. This is a pull rate increase. Great news for players, people who are buying boxes, everything, right? This is great news, and it probably means those Carbonite boosters are going to be absolutely jammed with legendaries. It also means we're probably looking at 5 legendaries per color. Maybe we're going to be looking at some mono black, mono white legendaries, a generic legendary potentially. Who knows? We will wait and see. Another exciting change is you'll now be able to obtain foil, hyperspace, and hyperspace foil versions of the starter deck rarity cards in boosters. This is interesting, because before these were always weekly play, but it seems like, as they announced on stream, that weekly play is going to be something else. We don't know what it's going to be yet, but we'll find out in the next month or so. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what that means. I mean, that's about half the weekly play kit now gone. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Certainly, I don't mind about these starter deck cards being available in boosters and hyperspace and stuff. That's great. I'll probably pick them up in hyperspace. That's very, very good. Okay, let's talk about set rotation. So there is a new set rotation symbol. This is, everyone has seen this on the set 4 cards. It's this A on the bottom. So where do we rotate? Let's read this together. At most, up to 6 sets will be legal for the Premier format at any time. Sets rotate out in batches of 3, with each batch belonging to a specific year of the game. For example, once the game's 7th set releases, the first 3 sets, Spark of Rebellion, Shadows of the Galaxy, and Twilight of the Republic, will all rotate out at the same time. Okay. And then, so you're just going to be able to keep track by letter, basically. So sets 4, 5, and 6 will have the letter A. Sets 7, 8, and 9 will probably have the letter B. And then, so once we start C, all of A will go, and it's just going to be the 2 latest letters of the alphabet. It's nice and straightforward. They probably could have started the game with the A, but whatever. I guess it doesn't really matter. So they say here, if some of your favorite cards in the set are in the set rotate out, don't fret. Once the set rotation happens, we will launch an eternal format in which all release sets for the game will always be legal, and that will have official organized play support. Great news. If a card is reprinted in a booster for a Premier legal set, then all versions of that card are legal, even those that were part of a previous set that rotated out. So this is obviously very, very big, and this means that we're going to need to pay very close attention to the cards that are reprinted in sets 4, 5, and 6, because these, and obviously 7, because these are going to represent which cards from the first year of the game FFG want us to have moving forward. This is very, very interesting. So we'll have a little discussion about that. And that's basically it. So let's talk about this. Okay, so set rotation. This is a big scary thing, and I think players who have never played a rotating game may be pretty terrified of this, right? Because there's no way to say this to someone who has never played a card game before and it not just sound terrible, right? Like, wait, hold on. So you're telling me, guaranteed, for sure, the longest I'll be able to use my cards for is 2 years. That is the longest I'll get to use, no matter what, and then after that, they're gone. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Now, obviously, you look at a card game like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or like, One Piece, Digimon. These are eternal games, no rotating format. The logic for rotation is twofold. The first is that it keeps the game accessible. In the most popular format, which is typically the standard format, here that's Premier, that's going to be the latest 2 years of sets, the previous year's and this year's. So obviously, like, it'll be 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6. That's how long we'll have these cards for. That means that the barrier to entry is a lot lower. You only need to pick up cards basically released in the last, 12 to 18 months, right? Like, that's really all you're looking at. 12 to 20 months, I guess. So, obviously, it does mean that cards released in the sets in the last set of each year are going to be standard legal for way less time than cards released in the first set of a given year. I suspect that will be factored into the design, but that is interesting, and obviously, that is something that can be avoided by having a constant rotation, but what that means is it's harder for someone to get into it because every new set that comes out, an old set releases. So this decision was probably made, not to make profits, but to just make it easier to understand for a new player what cards are actually legal, because it can get quite confusing. So that's the first reason, right? The first reason is it makes it accessible. The second reason is it just makes game balance a lot easier when you only have to deal with about 6 sets worth of cards at one time. I guess 9, right? Because you'll design 3, and then the next 3, and then the next 3 after that, and they'll all overlap in some way. And that's kind of it. So you're only ever working with up to 9 sets at once. And that's a lot. We're only working with 3 sets at the moment, and there is a lot to explore. This meta is still, pretty big, pretty wide open. And this is the smallest the card pool will ever be. So definitely, when you look at these legacy games, you can see why you often have so many issues. And let's talk about the third reason, which is kind of the unsaid reason. And that is basically, if you look at these legacy games, they are inevitably a shit show. You can talk about ban lists, and you can say oh yeah, it's fine, we'll just ban the problem cards. And what happens are cards that were printed in a completely different context, right? Like a card from, so for example, right, if you look at the Dragon Ball card game, this is a random example, right? Cards printed in the first set of that game, God, about 7 years ago now, I think 6, 7 years ago, it's been a while, maybe up to 10, but it's been a long time, right? The first set of that game, half of the cards are banned because successively new mechanics got released, new leaders, new things, and cards that were previously pretty terrible, that were definitely not factored into the game design of these new mechanics, ended up being completely broken and just needed to get banned because they were not fun, right? So, for example, let's say that we are in a situation where, resupply is just completely broken, right? Right now, it seems fine, it seems fair, but what if we were in a situation where, in 5 years, that card is completely busted and it ruins a format, right? Now, I appreciate that's one card, and basically what you're doing with rotation is, the first half is you're kind of removing that whole possibility. You're going no, this is not going to happen. We just don't want the risk. Okay. So the second thing, I guess there's 3 sort of things here. The second thing is you are removing the risk. You're also keeping the format just constantly fresh, because we can see set 1 just has the best leaders, basically, right? Boba is banned, Han is the best new deck, Sabine is the second best or the tied best deck, right? These are all set 1 leaders. They are all the best leaders. So, okay, yes, there are leaders that can compete, that are strong, but none of them are really comparing to Han, Boba, and Sabine. These are just the Trinity, right? And these are all set 1 leaders. So what that means is, come set 7, they're gone, which is going to be pretty big, actually. And obviously, so in the stream, they said we might not be, hailing Sabine as the premier aggro deck anymore. I'll believe that when I see it. But hey, even if we are for another year, it's going to be gone come set 7, which is big news, right? So it means that you're never really going to be stuck with anything for too long. Okay, So that's two of the advantages, right? You're not going to be stuck with anything for too long. You're kind of removing the risk of random cards just like blowing up and being too good. The final thing I want to say is, guys, if you look at other card games, the percentage of the time that a card is relevant for more than 2 years is just vanishingly small. Like, if you actually go back and you look at like all the old sets, so the game that I'm playing the most right now that isn't Star Wars is One Piece, and if you look at cards released in the first year of the game, now that we are in year 3 of the game, how many of these cards are still seeing play that were not reprinted in the reprint set? It's basically zero. Like, I think it actually is zero that were not reprinted during the second year of the game, right? So if we have staples, they will just get reprinted. And even if there were any, oftentimes these cards that are reprinted, that are not reprinted and that are just like insanely busted, like moving forward, frankly, to be perfectly honest, they should be banned. They should not be that good, right? You like if you're having a card that is like relevant 3-4 years down the line, that just means it was busted and it probably shouldn't have been printed that early in the first place. So that being said, obviously I'm being a bit of a glazer right now, so let's talk about some of the cons of rotation. Your cards have a shelf life. They just absolutely have a shelf life, number one. Number two, how popular is this Eternal format going to be? It's great to talk about it now. It's great to talk about Twin Suns. I will believe the tournament support when I see it, right? Right now, they're building out their premier sort of tournament system. It's going reasonably well. Prizes really leaving a bit to be desired. Regionals sector's looking good. So, okay, I'm hopeful. PQ's still disappointing. Store Showdown's fine. So I'm pretty, in the middle of the road right now. I don't buy that FFG can perfectly design this like premier format until I see it. So I want to be proven wrong. Like, I love this game, so I really hope I'm wrong. So yeah, you got the shelf life. You're assuming the format's going to get supported. And the other thing you're going to potentially run the risk into is just these cards getting really expensive. If no one's buying them to play with them, let's say Luke Skywalker doesn't get a reprint, and then like it's just a tier 0 card in the premier in the legacy format, the Eternal format. Sorry, I'm using magic terms. In the Eternal format, and you just need it. You have to. Your deck just has to play Luke. All the best decks play Luke, and no one has this card. This card goes to $200, $300, $400, right? And they really don't want to reprint like the card into a standard set because it's going to completely destroy the format, or it's too late. And you just have these long periods where cards are just very, very expensive. I mean, you can see this in Magic, right? Like, the older cards now, to be fair, they've sort of changed this by power creeping the shit out of all the older formats recently. But, like, before, this was the issue with the Eternal formats of Magic, where just cards were, because they were not printed, because they were not reprinted, they were just really, really expensive. And as the card pool grows, this is going to be more and more of an issue that FFG are going to have to be alive to. How many cards are they going to reprint in a given set in a given year? We don't know. Are they going to do like special reprint sets where they just inject a whole load of old cards into the format to mix things up a bit, to bring back some old favourites? We don't know. So there's a lot of unknowns. On balance, I would say rotation is net better. I think generally speaking, the card games with rotation seem to have slightly healthier formats. FFG is doing both. They have rotations and they have a ban list. So of all the games at the moment, right, like at the moment FFG has been the most on just dealing with problems, I would say, like by and large, considering the age of the game. So overall, I'm pretty positive about this. And obviously, I'm very positive about the increased pull rates for Legendary. So that's my thoughts on this. I hope you guys found this video useful, enjoyable. If you did, please like the video, subscribe to the channel for lots more Star Wars Unlimited content. And I can't wait to see you guys in the next one. Cheers.